Hello and welcome to another episode of Strategic Painting Army Previews. This is Smorganite speaking, and this week I'm going to be taking you through the Solar Linesmen, which is our Imperial Guard army. The reason I've chosen to talk to you about this army this week is because Croydon and I are actually working on another contingent of an Astra Militarum army, and I thought it would be quite good to sort of continue the interest and the hype on the Astra Militarum and where I can see this army going in the future. So we'll kick things off with reading the short paragraph on the Solar Linesman webpage. So here we go. The Solar Linesman. The bread and butter of the Imperium front lines are the brave individuals who place themselves at the front of any conflict. To each linesman, their belief that dying in service of the master of mankind is surely the most noble and honourable death they can offer, and to die for him with all the courage and resolve that they can muster. With the commissars of the Solar Linesmen watching over their platoons, none shall fail in courage and desert the cause, unless they be faced with a las pistol shot without a second's hesitation. So yeah, when I started the Solar Linesmen, it was originally more of a laugh, really. It was I'd been challenged by somebody. I think it was Minion. I can't remember exactly who. I'd been challenged by Minion or someone to paint a army pink. Now, the reason that I'd been told that pink would be a fun army to do was because I'd sort of mentioned that I hadn't really seen many pink armies in my gaming groups, and there weren't any Emperor's Children players, so that's sort of, you know, you're not going to get a Space Marine Legio that's pink, and there weren't really any other Harlequin players or anything like that. So I'd said I'd not seen any pink armies, and I didn't know if there was a reason for it or if it was taboo, and we'd sort of been joking, Minion and I, that I should paint up a Warlord pink, because it was before I'd got my first Warlord, and I'd sort of thought, well, maybe I should look at an army that could be pink. And I went away and looked at the Emperor's Children, and for me they didn't seem something I'd be interested in for Warhammer 40,000, so I sort of said, no, I'm not particularly too bothered about a pink army, but I would love to try painting something in pink. And I originally started with an Imperial Knight, and that's where the first model came from that I painted pink. I actually painted 2 Freeblade Knights, and it was one that, or the pair of them were actually done so that they were quite heavily battle damaged. I'd done them so that they were in a snowscape because I just painted some of my Tau, and I quite enjoyed the fact that I'd got opposing force with the same bases. So I knew that Minion had some guard, and I knew that he was wanting to play games with his guard, so it sort of worked that if he were to borrow my models, he and I would have the same base scheme, and that was the plan. And with the Imperial Knights, when the first couple were done, and I'd done like the battle damage and the transfers and done everything that needed to be done for a model to be complete, I actually looked at it and went, you know, the Screamer Pink variant of pink isn't actually that bad. It's something that I would actually like to see a little bit more of, and I wanted to know where this rabbit hole was going to lead and what models I would end up with my Imperial Guard, and what would the Imperial Guard look like if I did them with the pink. So I started working, and sort of I was adding to the collection quite regularly, sort of boxes of troops, and adding in tanks and the command squads and heavy weapon squads and things like that. So it was sort of more of an infantry platoon than a tank company, and that was something that I was enjoying. I was enjoying painting the pink. It was, you know, Screamer Pink base, non-oil wash, then Screamer Pink to layer it back up, thin down, and Pink Horror highlight. It was semi-easy to do and quite enjoyable at the same time. And the effect that it brought out was actually quite nice, that each of the sort of Cadians had this sort of rugged, dark pink, nearly red, or dark, maroony sort of colour vibe. And I quite enjoyed the fact that I was building up a pink army, and I was the only one in my friendship group to do so, because we had Minion with his guard that were unpainted, but with Mechanicum that he was looking at doing a bone colour. I had somebody else that was doing Tyranids, Alpha Legion, so it was quite nice to have like a pink army on the tabletop. And when it came to painting characters like Creed and Yarick and stuff, I thought, you know what, I'm going to bite the bullet here, and I'm going to paint them in my colours, as opposed to painting them the colours that they would be in the lore. So I decided that actually the pink would be a universal thing for characters or for infantrymen alike. And I quite enjoyed the fact that I'd taken on this challenge and actually made it so that I'd got a force that was pink. And I've put it up on the website. I've put it on the Instagram page. I've got, Master of Ordnances. I've got the characters. I've got Militarum Tempestus models as sort of veterans, or commanders in the squads, or sergeants in the squads and things. And the thing that drew me to it was the fact that I started building up quite a nice force of pink models. I then set my sights on a model that I absolutely love. I know a lot of people don't, and it's a bridge in the hobby between people that like it or people that don't. It's definitely a Marmite model, and that model is the Taurox, or the Taurox, however you pronounce it. The Taurox is how I pronounce it, and I absolutely love the model. I love the sort of 4-track model with a gun on top, or missile pods on top, and I just thought it looked so cool that it's like an off-road vehicle. They thought, you know what, wheels, nah, let's get some tracks on there. So I got a track model, one of them, built it up, and I painted it pink, and I absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed the process of building it up and painting it, and I did the internals of it as well, so the two, the pilot and the gunsman, and I painted it up and did sort of OSL on the lights inside. And I thought, you know what, I could do with a couple more of these. And Jarl was sort of saying to me, well, if you're wanting to build it up, why don't you sort of add more tanks in? And I thought, well, I don't really want to add tanks at the moment. It was something that he'd got a tank company, and I knew that he'd got a lot of tanks in his collection because I'd played against them. But I decided that actually it would be more beneficial for me and interesting for me to keep with just Tauroxes. So I kept with Tauroxes for a very long time, until Minion decided to sell his tanks and guard. I didn't actually have any tanks at all, really, other than the Taurox. So it was quite nice that I'd got these, four-track buggies to take my troops around and play with, driving sort of down the streets and stuff of my Imperial City board. So that was fun. And then 8th edition came out, and with 8th edition, with the fact that at the beginning it was all indexes, there was no codexes and stuff, it was all sort of, if it's in an index you can take it kind of thing. I looked at the Ogryns and Bulgryns and I thought, you know what, I like those models. They seem fun. I was playing Age of Sigmar a lot at the time, and I was playing sort of ogres and orcs and the Destruction Army, and the Ogryns and Bulgryns sort of reminded me of, obviously, they're very similar to the ogres in Age of Sigmar. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to make a force of just Ogryns and Bulgryns now, and that's what I did. I bought, I think it was 15 at first, and then it went up to 45. I bought 15 Ogryn models. I did them with slab shields, grenade launchers, the ripper guns and knives, and I made my own Nork Deadog model. I think that's his name, the character Bulgryn. I made one of him on Logan Grimnar's sleigh with the wolves pulling it. as a sort of a bit more of a, they're the dogs that he's got like husky dogs, or he's got his own sort of work dogs, and I did Fenrisian wolves as all of their pets, and I mixed together these two armies just to make something a bit cooler, a bit more narrative driven. That the Bulgrins had pets, and they were these huge wolves that, you know, stand as tall as a normal man, sort of 6 foot tall, and to them they're still dog shaped or dog sized. They're sort of half waist height kind of thing. And yeah, I really enjoyed building up, and the freedom that 8th edition gave me to build up this army of you know, Bulgrins and wolves. And in the grand scheme of things, I didn't realise this at the time, but it was actually leading me to fleshing out the Imperial Guard army that I'd put together. So by this point I'd got the 2 knights, 4 Tauroxes, all the Bulgrins. I think I'd got around 20 guardsmen, and as it was growing, my interest for other things also was growing. And I spoke with Minion and said to him, well, what is it in your army that you're not wanting? Is there anything you're wanting to sell? And me and him came to an agreement of me buying his Imperial Guard, and he would use that money towards some Mechanicum. And you know, it was quite nice that we were off and away with adding in some more bits for the Guard, and that meant that I got a lot more troops that were already built, so it saved me time building them, because Cadians, yeah, they're great models in the sense that they are just linesmen and they are cannon fodder, so they're going to die. There's still obviously a good amount of detail on them, but they're not super complex to build, and they are quite sort of repetitive and perhaps tedious if you're building hundreds. So it was quite nice that they were already built for me. So I was then adding in sort of the Psyker models for guardsmen. I was adding in the Navigator and some of the Inquisitors, and just adding in models just to make it so it was a bit more of a lore friendly army. Like I added in Eisenhorn when that new sculpt came out, and I put a picture on the website of the Guard army that it ended up as, and I think there was something like 63 conscripts or guardsmen that I'd actually painted up, all of them with eyes and pupils, and you know, I even dotted each of their eyes, which it meant that army to me was being looked after, and it was complete, more than just, you know, just giving it a go for why not's sake. And at this point I'd sort of decided I was going to rebase the knights to make them so that they were a bit more friendly to any board type. So I painted the bases so that they were like an astrogranity grey kind of, they can fit anything aesthetic. I'd then also done the city bases for the actual guardsmen themselves, the actual Games Workshop city bases that you can buy in packs, just so that the scenery would blend in better with the scenery. And I'd added in a Hellhound and something like that, just so that I'd got a little bit of tank cover. I'd got some Chimeras from Minion, but at the same time it just meant that I could have, you know, some anti-infantry in the sense of a flamer, a chem cannon, and I also added in a Crassius because I needed obviously the space inside to be able to transport all these conscripts. So the army then stayed like that for a very long time, and it was something that I was proud of. You know, I got a pink army, I painted it all up, and it looked quite good altogether. So I'd actually kept that, and that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping that army as it is. I'm not going to repaint it. I'm going to take a couple of the tanks out of it. So I've taken the Chimeras and the Crassius out for this new army, because I'm going to do the Imperial Guard again, sort of like a 5-7 years later kind of project, and I'm doing it more based around a tank company. So originally the tank company was called Rolling Thunder. The reason I'd chosen the name Rolling Thunder was because I'd painted them all black, and I was going to paint them black. So I wanted sort of stealth tanks, and at the time I sort of gave up after painting 1 or 2, because it was like there's not much that I can do with a black army. You know, you can edge highlight it and battle damage, but that's pretty much it. And I thought, you know what, that's not fun. I want a guard army that's, you know, got camouflage stripes and patterns to make it so it's a bit more unique and we can have a bit of fun. And I approached Croydon with this idea that we could do it together. We could sort of paint the camouflage and do the work together, and, you know, have something that we're both proud of. And that's what we're we're working on at the moment. We're working on repainting the tank company that I've got, so that then it can be put up on the website and on Strategic Painting's Instagram. And I've taken the Crassius from the Solar Linesmen, so the first Guard Army. I've taken that Crassius and the Chimeras, but pretty much everything else in the pictures is going to stay as the pink army, just so that then I've got that army ready with all those conscripts, and with this new sprue coming out for Cadians, so that you can add a bit more of variety. I'm actually going to be sort of getting a few of them. I said to Croydon that we'd cap it at 30 infantrymen, just so that we've got 3 units of 10. Just something, it's a platoon, that way we can have 3 units and keep it quite small infantryman wise, but have more tanks. So that's what we're going to do. That will be, I'll do an update and a post on that, and a podcast on what we decide we're going to put in the army and why we chose what tanks, and if we add any Baneblades or Shadow Swords or any of the other sort of super heavy tanks, I can put that in there as well. But for now, yeah, that's pretty much a little breakdown of the Solar Linesman, where it came from, what the plan was for it, and where it's sort of headed. It's sort of at its completion level now. So yeah, well, if you made it this far, thank you very much for listening, and take care.